What's up, everybody? This is Alex from Fireside Giants, an Empire Sports Media production, and you're listening to the Fireside Giants podcast. If you're a diehard Giants fan, you've come to the right place. Daily episodes, interviews, draft content, and so much more. Make sure to drop a like and subscription below on YouTube, and don't forget to leave a comment. We love to engage with everybody. And it's the day after the Super Bowl. Now every NFL team has about a month until free agency kind of opens up and things start to get moving and grooving, and the NFL draft we have to look forward to. We figured, why not kick off the first day after the Super Bowl with a draft evaluation and film analysis for you guys. And this is a player that I'm quickly falling in love with, guys, as a potential target for the New York Giants. I did a kind of a trade back scenario yesterday where the Giants added a couple second round picks. In this scenario, we get a guy in the mid rounds who could be a great tight end for us. If you're not aware, Evan Ingram is a free agent. Kyle Rudolph, we would say $5 million from cutting him, so we can pretty much guarantee he's gone. We don't have a tight end, right? Unless they re-sign Evan Ingram, which is highly unlikely. We don't have a tight end right now, so we should expect a couple guys to be on the market, on the target tree for the Giants, and this guy really stands out, Jeremy Ruckert from Ohio State. I'm really excited to dive into him, what he offers an NFL team, specifically the Giants, Anthony. Before we do so, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. I really like Jeremy Ruckert. Not only is he from Ohio State, but he's actually from Long Island. I'm sure that we have plenty of listeners from Long Island. I'm from Long Island, so maybe I'm going to be a little biased and favor Jeremy Ruckert a little more than other prospects because of that. But quickly, I want to say OBJ got a ring. That was awesome. And what we learned last night, you're nothing without a good offensive line, right? I mean, look at how Aaron Donald just completely wrecked the Bengals offensive line and kind of just ended their game on that final drive. That was basically all Aaron Donald, one of the greatest to ever do it. That was such a great game that we were, pleased to watch last night on the Super Bowl. Really great game. Of course, OBJ tore his ACL. It's terrible, but you know what? He got his ring. It was a great game. I was really excited to watch that. But now, like Alex mentioned, attention is being turned towards the offseason, towards the NFL free agency period, towards the NFL draft. And that's where this channel is headed. That's the direction we're headed in now. We're going to start off with some draft content today, keep rolling into the draft. Scouting combine comes by the end of this month. So it's going to be a lot of fun content on this channel. I'm really excited. This is almost my favorite period of the entire NFL year, is when we're finally ready to dive into all these draft prospects and take a look at what the Giants might strategize and do this offseason. This is really exciting time. So make sure to stay tuned to Fireside Giants for all of that content.
Absolutely. Now, Jeremy Ruckert, really, really interesting player. If you've watched him in Ohio State, he can do it all, right? He's a really strong pass-catching tight end, a great red zone threat. Last year, we went out and got Kyle Rudolph, and we said, finally, we have this 6'6" monster tight end we can, throw into the end zone. And he was washed. I mean, you watch Kyle Rudolph play, he was so slow. He could not get to spots in time. And before offensive line, obviously, would let up pass rushers get through and sack Daniel Jones, whoever the hell was playing quarterback for us. It was a freaking Russian roulette of quarterbacks last year. But I'll tell you what, if they can solve this offensive line a little bit, get some talent there, give Daniel Jones some more time. Jeremy Ruckert, and a former, I think he was a 5-star recruit, one of the top tight ends coming out of high school. He was another great tight end at Ohio State. He is a solid player. All around, he is capable of run blocking at a high level. He's really good in those wide zone running styles, going kind of toward the sideline, horizontal. Not really, you won't see him a lot in those vertical styles. And Jason Garrett last year and Freddie Kitchens, they were very diverse, actually, with the way that they ran the football. They had a lot of vertical. They tried to bounce it outside. They kind of did not ever just put figure out a identity for that offense. It was always trying to change up the game plan every single week. And it ended up just being let's run the ball 50 times because we can't pass it. But I think Jeremy Ruckert, a very willing blocker. I know a lot of people hate it when people say they're willing blockers, but you'll see in the film, he goes full force, 100%. Now, there will be times that he will get sidestepped. He's very aggressive. There will be linebackers that shed those blocks, that better linebackers. But I think that with the proper development, he can be a great tight end in the NFL. And looking at who we just hired as our new tight ends coach, Andy Bischoff from the Baltimore Ravens, he was a key component, instrumental in the development of Mark Andrews, who, as we know, is arguably one of the best, if not the best tight end in football. Him and Travis Kelce are probably neck and neck for it. But Mark Andrews, an absolute stud. Him and Jeremy Ruckert have almost identical frames. I think Mark Andrews might be 2 or 3 pounds heavier. So you like to see that. Andy Bischoff, you get him a guy like Jeremy Ruckert, I would be very confident in Bischoff actually developing him into a quality player. He's super athletic. He's powerful. He has great hands, some of the best hands. He does not drop the football. You'll see one of these plays. He has a he runs a deep post out of the seam and he catches it one-handed down the field. How often do you see tight ends do that? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like what we're trying to get here is like he's a good blocker, but he's also a good pass catcher. And I think the Giants could use a big body that has that underrated athleticism. Evan Ingram he had so many troubles dropping the football. He was never really a great blocker. And Anthony, you have some really interesting stuff to talk about in terms of statistics and how the Giants could use a guy like Jeremy Ruckert and how Brian Dable has used guys like Dawson Knox in the past.
Yeah, I have a lot of really great information. I've been diving in, taking a look at, Brian Dable's offensive scheme based on like the stat sheets. What does it look like on paper? What are the personnel groupings? Like how frequently is he using 11 personnel versus 12 personnel, 13, whatever it might be? How frequently are those personnel groupings being used? And how is he utilizing the players in those groupings, right? How is the tight end being used? Because I think that's very important to take a look at. You remember the Giants this past year, they ran a lot of 12 personnel. In fact, they ran the seventh most amount of 12 personnel in the NFL this past season, meaning that they had 2 tight ends on the field, the seventh most frequently out of all the teams in the league. Well, guess who was in last place? It was actually the Buffalo Bills. They used the least amount of 12 personnel out of every team in the NFL, only on 8% of their snaps. Miami used that on 61%. The Giants were at 26%, which again was 7th in the NFL, but Buffalo was all the way down at 8%, barely ever using 2 tight ends. So I'm going to keep making this point that yes, the Giants need to get that tight end position fixed because Evan Engram, I don't think he's going to be a great fit in this scheme. But the number 2 tight end position, the Giants went out there. They spent a lot of money on Kyle Rudolph because they were going to run a lot of 12 personnel, which they did. But going forward, they're not going to be doing that. They're going to be run almost exclusively 11 personnel, which is 1 tight end, 1 running back, and 3 wide receivers. That's what the Giants are going to be in for probably 70% of their personnel groupings. Buffalo was 4th in the NFL with that grouping at 71% this past season. So as Brian Dable continues to work it together with the scheme and implement it, you're going to see a lot of 11 personnel. You're not going to see a lot of 12 personnel. But because it's 11 personnel, that means the tight end position has now gotten infinitely more important for the Giants because that one starting tight end needs to be good. Because if you're going out there basically on every single play with only 1 tight end, you're not going with 2 tight ends. You don't have to invest money into your number 2 tight end position, but your number 1 tight end needs to be good. For the Bills, they were fortunate. They had Dawson Knox. He's a great player, and they were able to run that 11 personnel. And in fact, because they were running a lot of 11 personnel and they were running the football out of 11 personnel, which is sometimes atypical. With 11 personnel, it's usually more frequently that you're passing, and it was for the Bills, but they ran a lot out of 11 personnel. So that means that 1 tight end that's out there has to do a lot more run blocking than your typical tight end. So Dawson Knox, on average, we just took a look at the numbers before we started recording. On average, he was run blocking 19 times per game. He even had a game last season where he run blocked for 32 snaps. So he was basically playing as an extra offensive lineman out there. And so that's important because if we're looking at what the Giants are trying to do with their offensive scheme, that tight end needs to be a good run blocker. And that's where Jeremy Ruckert comes in because he reminds Alex a lot of Mark Andrews. And I totally see that comparison. Both from Ohio State, both have that tenacity to run block. But Mark Andrews only blocked on average 15 times per game. And Evan Engram this past season, as in that 2 tight end set, only 14 times per game. So Dawson Knox run blocking 19 times per game is pretty eye-opening. And it shows you how Brian Dable is planning on using these tight ends. You're going to see a lot of 11 personnel, only 1 tight end on the field at a time. But that tight end has to be a willing run blocker and has to be a good run blocker in addition to being a good receiver because what Brian Dable does, he throws the football almost more than anybody. They call a lot of passing plays, and especially out of that 11 personnel because there's 3 receivers on the field. So the Giants, couple of their missions this offseason, it's going to be adding depth at wide receiver because of the 11 personnel, and it's going to be making sure that 1 tight end that's always on the field is freaking good. It needs to be a good tight end, one that can block and receive. That's why Dawson Knox excelled in the Buffalo Bills scheme. That's why Dawson Knox easily became his favorite target at certain points in the game, especially down in the red zone, because you need that willing run blocker at tight end and a good receiver. So Jeremy Ruckert might actually be the perfect fit in Brian Dable's scheme because he's willing to block, he's good at it as well, and he's a pretty damn good receiver. I think Jeremy Ruckert, keep an eye on him as we move closer and closer to the NFL draft. Keep all the stuff that I just said in mind when you're thinking about how Brian Dable is going to build the scheme and the personnel within it, because Jeremy Ruckert having the ability as a receiver and the run blocker is super important. It might make him a perfect selection for the Giants in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, that was a ton of good info. So if you're listening, you just got a good rundown before you even dive into the film of what he's capable of. I'll even throw in another extra factor, Mike Kafka and the Kansas City Chiefs. They love to have that primary pass-catching tight end, Travis Kelce. Jeremy Ruckert has some of the best hands that you're going to see in this tight end class. He is that good. The thing is, he was buried behind Chris Olave and a ton of other quality playmakers for Ohio State. They didn't even need Jeremy Ruckert to be a primary factor in the passing game for them to have success. But the reality is, he is that good as a receiver as well. Guy does not drop the football. You'll see in the clips. But, Mike Kafka, Brian Dable, they really rely on those tight ends, Dawson Knox, Travis Kelce, to be kind of influential factors in the receiving game and the run blocking game. And I love how they use them in the slot too. They move them out. They do different things and they bring them across them in motion, especially on those wide zone running plays to get some crack blocks there. But I really think that it depends on how they plan to utilize Saquon Barkley as well. I've always been a proponent, Anthony. I've been saying this forever. I hate running Saquon Barkley vertical. He is the worst vertical running back that the Giants have, and using him in that way just holds him back from being his best self. Because first of all, the Giants don't have a good enough offensive line to shift their line of scrimmage, right? So right off the bat, they're giving up penetration, and Saquon Barkley is not a good decision maker when he doesn't have enough time. He doesn't decide fast enough what holes dead. He's not Jonathan Taylor. So when you give him that wide zone and you have guys leading the charge, it gives him more time to see the holes opening up and to pick which one to run through. I think that that's how the Giants should be approaching their running style this upcoming season, and having better blockers, especially if you go after a guy with the 5th overall pick like Ikem Ekwonu out of NC State, a really great run blocker, or if you go in the offensive line interior guys like you get Tyler Linderbaum, if you go Zion Johnson in the second round. There's so many different guys they can go with. There's obviously free agency to consider as well. And Shane Lemieux coming back. I don't have much stock in Shane Lemieux, but he's there, so we'll see what he's got. But with Saquon Barkley, if they are going to keep him, they're not going to trade him and recoup that $7.2 million. Really maximizing his potential is great. And I think that Barkley just said recently, in fact, that he had great conversations with Brian Dable about how they can maximize him as a runner, as a receiver, really build a scheme that's going to fit his style of play and maximize his strengths. And I don't think vertical running has ever been his strength, and I don't think it ever will be. So I really would like to see Rucker in that offense, because I think he would fit that wide zone scheme, that wide zone running scheme perfectly, which Saquon Barkley, I think, would excel in coming off a year of health. But let's dive into the film, guys. Let's take a look at what we've been talking about and how good Jeremy Ruckert can be at the NFL level. Okay, so right off the bat, we're going to check out some running plays.
You're basically going to see Jeremy Ruckert here work as a chef in the back of IHOP, because he's just serving pancakes on like all of these plays. It's pretty impressive. When we say he's a willing run blocker, we mean it, but he's also a very good run blocker. Look at the way he just flattens linebackers at the second level. It's almost bizarre.
Yep, so you'll see him on the left side of your screen. He's all the way far on the left, and you'll see him right here. Number 31 stands no chance. He's basically trying to read that RPO there, and bam, it's just sort of play action. He just runs him over, and you love to see that, right? Because tight ends delivering pancakes, and I love that analogy, little IHOP. He's laying bodies on the floor, and that's what you want to see. We love to see offensive linemen do it. When you see tight ends do it, that he's got power. And I was watching a bunch of clips and film from him before. This guy just bench presses people off of him. If you watched the Super Bowl and saw Aaron Donald holding offensive linemen at bay, you'll see Jeremy Ruckert, when he gets his hands on you, he has very underrated power, and I think that's something to keep an eye on. He just bench presses him. He's aggressive as hell, man. Those linebackers that are unsuspecting, goodness gracious, they get a whopping. All right, let's take a look. So you see him, he's coming across the line, coming towards the ball.
Yeah, and this is one of those plays that I really like. Yeah,
gracious.
It's a phenomenal block. He flattens that linebacker, even gives him a little shove after the play. But what I really like about this play is kind of the play design here, right? It's that crackback block on that inside zone split. And they're kind of taking it to the wide zone as well. And it's kind of one of those things where you've got like some motion across the line of scrimmage, which you're going to see more of from the Giants this year at Brian Dable. Like, you're going to see more of this. This last year with Jason Garrett and Freddie Kitchens, we didn't see that a whole lot. It was kind of like line up, snap, and run down the middle. But we didn't see a lot of those tight ends pull pull across the line of scrimmage, that kind of thing. But you're going to see that more often with Brian Dable for sure. So I think when you're taking a look at a play like this, where it's kind of that crack pack block with Jeremy Ruckert coming across the line of scrimmage on that zone split, that's really, really good stuff because we're going to see these plays implemented into Brian Dable's scheme going forward. And again, when we're talking about this guy maybe being a perfect fit in that scheme, these are some of the plays that we're referring to.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of interesting because if you watch him, he takes out two guys at once. Like that guy behind that second guy trips and falls. He just ends up falling right into the running back. So like it's pretty impressive to see that type of power. He was able to shift two linebackers here. One might have been a safety, but he's able to shift two players. Actually, yeah, I can't tell who that was coming off the edge, but it's impressive power from a tight end nonetheless, and he does a great job. He's very aggressive in these running plays, getting to the second level, and he's pretty underrated speed. Obviously, has some damn good power to him as well. So they love to run those zone reads, right? They love to just try to get guys, and I think that's a perfect way that the Giants, a good example of how the Giants could use Daniel Jones next year with these zone read options. We've seen Daniel Jones have tremendous success. Jeremy Ruckert, man, as your lead blocker, look, I mean, he's coming across and he's laying bodies, man. He's putting guys on the ground. That's what you want to see. He's just putting guys on the ground, and he finishes blocks too, man. It's out of the screen, but he makes sure that guy hits the turf. And it's so, and like at the same time, I also want to point out, look how far away from the play he is. The play goes the opposite direction, and he's making sure his guy is on the floor. So that's the kind of extra effort that, will go, unseen, but you love to see that. And I think that Joe Schoen made it apparent that oftentimes you miss on the player and you miss on the person, not the player. I think that when you have a guy like Jeremy Ruckert, you're seeing what he brings. He is constantly 100% effort, work ethic, motor, does not stop. That's the kind of player you want.
Yeah, and on this play specifically, as you're mentioning the effort, you're talking about playing through the whistle. Your players have to play through the whistle, have to finish the play off, finish it strong. And that's what I love to see here with Jeremy Ruckert, this kind of extra effort. You're going to see he tries to dive on that guy at the end, just flatten him into the ground. Don't give him a chance to get up. What if the running back is cutting towards the middle of the field because he found the crease? Well, now your guy, if you're not blocking him through the whistle, might be able to make that stop. So Jeremy Ruckert's aware of that. He's just playing through the whistle. He's putting in all of the effort necessary, and that's what you really love to see. And I think that's something that we've seen in the past, and with these past couple of head coaches, we've seen Giants players give up on plays, like Janoris Jenkins just not tackling somebody that he easily could have tackled to stop a touchdown, right? We've seen tight ends not finish their blocks or go through, even wide receivers not go through the whistle on their blocks. But Jeremy Ruckert's one of those players where he's going to play through the whistle, give it his all, put all of his heart into every single play. And that's kind of the stuff that I really appreciate from tight ends especially, and I think is going to be really important for the Giants to find players and people like that going forward.
Absolutely. I mean, think about how many times did Billy Price miss a tackle last year in the open space? How many times did Billy Price miss open field blocks rather? So like like when you have offensive linemen doing it, it's a big no-no. And this is another great example. Watch how he seals this edge for the running back who takes it to the house. I mean, he just plants this. I mean, he's coming in trying to take out the guy's legs, and he just buries this man, runs right over him, and off to the races. We've seen Evan Ingram miss that block 100 times. We've seen Billy Price miss that block all season long last year. We've seen Giants players lack discipline to make this block, and we've seen defensive backs, cornerbacks come up and blow through guys, and it's like, how the hell? Jeremy Ruckert's not going to let a guy get through him like that. I think this is what we're kind of seeing is like he has tremendous power. He gets there first. He's leading the way, and you can be pretty confident he's going to make that block in the open field for you, and he's going to make sure that you have the running back or whoever's running it has the opportunity to take it to the crib. And I love how they're bringing him across the formation too, because he's really, really fast and he's really athletic and strong, and they have him pulling, and it's just bam. I mean, he's sealing that. And you just love to see like he's just strong, man. I mean, he's holding guys back for his running back to get there. I mean, that defender, that edge rusher is trying to close it. He wants to close that gap as fast as possible and just basically create no space for that running back. But you see Ruckert just get in the way of him. I mean, he lays a nice hit on an edge rusher there. It's not easy to do, and he gives his running back a little bit of room. I mean, that's enough room for a running back to get through. Saquon Barkley, any decent NFL running back is going to get through that hole. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, and I like plays like this a lot too. the one that just played through, because it's not like he's being brought in motion and it's like a crackback or, like he's pulling into somebody. He just lined up like an offensive lineman in front of this guy and just pushed him. Like this is basically playing like an extra tackle on the field. And that's what I'm talking about with this 11 personnel, with those personnel groupings, right? Where Dawson Knox, like the game where he blocked 32 times. He ran blocked on 32 snaps. This is one of those things where when you're playing 11 personnel and you've got one tight end out there, at times he's going to have to play like an extra offensive lineman. He's basically playing the extra tackle position. And you can see Ohio State on this formation, there's only one tight end out there and one running back. They're in 11 personnel. So this is one of those plays that's a perfect prime example of why Jeremy Ruckert is going to fit so well in Brian Dable's scheme if he's drafted by the Giants. Because look at this. You got one tight end and one running back on the field. This is 11 personnel. And the Bills last year liked to run the ball out of 11 personnel because they trusted Dawson Knox and their tight end to make the block. So with Jeremy Ruckert right here lining up in that 11 personnel, basically as an extra offensive tackle, just pushing that edge rusher back and creating a lane for the running back, this is one of those plays where that's like perfect. This is exactly what I was talking about, what I wanted to see from Jeremy Ruckert on this film. And this is one of those things that makes him such a great scheme fit in that 11 personnel offense.
Yeah, and just to be objective a little bit, I would like to see him square off and just kind of have his back to the gap there, right? So he kind of lets this defender get back to the middle and almost get an arm on him. An NFL defender may drag a running back down here. I would like to see Ruckert just reposition his body and square his shoulders to the gap, so he gets kind of pushed off here, loses the leverage. I'd like to see him just keep him square and keep that back, like you see right to the right. That defender is perfectly blocking that, because that defender, rather the lineman there is perfectly blocking. The defender can't get around him. I'd like to see Ruckert get to the other side of that and just seal off that gap. So that's one thing that I would say.
I won't disagree with you, but what I'll say is he isn't an offensive lineman. He's playing that extra tackle position.
That's the thing.
And he's going up against that edge rusher. So his primary goal, create like 3 yards of space for the running back to get a lane.
And that's valid.
And that's exactly what he did. So I agree with you. Technique could be better. He could seal him off better, but on that play, he did his job. And I think that he'll continue to do that job at the NFL level.
Yep. And here you'll see he comes across here, and he's basically just another form where he's coming across the line of scrimmage and just crack blocking on the outside. They run a lot of those zone read options. A lot of read options, and bam, he comes across, and that defender, I mean, that's a great block, because look at the hole right up the middle there. He completely locks that off, and he gets that's an extra couple yards there. That's a first down for whoever knows how. I don't know how many yards it was, but that's a first down by most occasions. And he does a great job holding that defender off. So another great play. They love bringing him around though. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, really great stuff here. Again, just bringing him across the line of scrimmage. You're going to see the Bills'
this is what I'm talking
offense
about.
implemented. You're going to see the Giants do this a whole lot with Brian Dable. And this is stuff that I really like too, because this is something that I don't think the Giants trusted either of their tight ends this past year to execute, right? So plays like this, when we talk about the Giants, we want to make them push the ball downfield more. We want to see them do this and that, but they didn't have the personnel to do it, right? That's what everyone would always say. They don't even have the players to do that kind of stuff. They didn't have the tight ends to make these blocks. But now, if they go ahead and they get Jeremy Ruckert, they'll have a tight end that can come across the line of scrimmage, blow up an edge rusher, blow up a middle linebacker, a safety, whatever it might be, and make that block. So I don't think Evan Engram was making this block because he's not strong enough. I don't think Kyle Rudolph was making that block because he's not fast enough. But Jeremy Ruckert will make this block because he has that perfect blend of size, speed, and strength that makes him a really capable run blocker.
Yeah, and I really like how he attacks that inside shoulder here of number 4. Attacks inside shoulder, he grabs him, seals him off, and this is what I was saying before. He shifts his leverage and he seals that gap. So if the running back were to have gone inside there, look at that gap. That defender, there's no way he's getting through there. So
yeah,
that's
that was
what I was trying
perfectly
to point
executed.
out.
Perfectly
so he attacks that inside shoulder, seals it off, repositions his body to make sure that gap is open. And that's exactly what you want to see. So he didn't do that perfectly in the other rep that we saw before, but that's what I was looking for. And he does it later on. Let's see what we got here. All right, yep. Just get a body on it, around the 1 yard line, easy enough. So now we're gonna get into some receiving clips, And as we all know, we desperately need a red zone option that's not named Kenny Golladay. We need a good tight end. If you look back at previous years of the Giants and successful teams, they all have good tight ends, right? Travis Kelce, of course, Dawson Knox, like we mentioned before, Mark Andrews, remember the Giants, Jake Ballard, Kevin Boss, Jeremy Shockey. We've had big body tight ends that are physical, aggressive, and can make contested catches in the red zone. That is something that Jeremy Ruckert excels at. This past season, he finished with, I think, about 309 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. So nothing that's going to blow your socks off, but he had 5 touchdowns the year before that and 4 touchdowns in 2019. So he's just churning out touchdowns in the red zone. He's a phenomenal player when it comes to using his body with leverage. So you'll see he has his eyes on the ball the whole time, knows where the defender is, creates leverage over the defender, separates a bit, gives him a little bit of shove, and he has so much power. You'll see, like in receiving scenarios, he has so much power that when he puts his hand on you, he puts you off balance. Like that corner completely off balance now, goes up, high points it, uses his body as leverage, gets in front of the defensive back, and bam, touchdown, Ohio State. And that's kind of what we need. His athleticism is far beyond what Kyle Rudolph offered last year. He has a big body. He's aggressive as hell. He knows how to create leverage with his hands because he's so strong. I think that's something that's going to be super beneficial for Daniel Jones and the Giants.
Yeah, and this is kind of one of those plays that reminded me of your comparison to Mark Andrews. This is a play I would see Mark Andrews make. Kind of Lamar Jackson puts it up there, back shoulder fade, and Mark Andrews is going to go up there and make the catch. And that's one of the things that made him this year's highest graded tight end in the NFL. That's kind of like what Mark Andrews does. He can do it all. He's got that size, that strength, and he can catch those back shoulder fades that you're seeing Jeremy Ruckert make on this play.
Yep, absolutely. Now we'll take a look over to some Senior Bowl clips as well. So this is very recent. That was like last week. And he's just a little out route here in coverage with a guy on him. A physical catch, man. I mean, this is a tough catch to make. You have a defender blanketed on your back. He high points this football with contact and stays in bounds. And he shrugs off the tackle and stays in bounds. That is a very impressive play. Very impressive. That is an NFL level catch. And he shrugs off a defender. In a lot of these Senior Bowl guys will probably have decent looks from NFL teams. We know Dave Gettleman really loved the Senior Bowl, and we know Joe Shane was there as well. This kind of catch right here, I promise you, Joe Shane's looking at that saying that's an NFL level tight end. That's the kind of catch you need them to make because tight ends, especially in the receiving game, it's essential for them to be able to make these little quick outs.
Yeah, and this is one of those plays that also reminds me of Mark Andrews, reminds me, of that comparison that you're making. It also reminds me of Dawson Knox. This is kind of similar to what the Bills were doing with Dawson Knox. Quick out and throw it to him, let him make a contested catch. Of course, you need a well-timed ball. If this ball is late, it's a pick. But the ball is on time. It might have been just a little bit late, but it was on time. It was in a good spot. And Jeremy Ruckert, it's a contested catch. He's literally got a guy on his back for this reception. He's able to go up there and make a strong catch and even stay on his feet afterwards, break a tackle. So really, really great stuff there. And again, just going to keep talking to how he'll fit into the scheme of Brian Daboll if he gets drafted by the Giants. I just see a perfect scheme fit here with Jeremy Ruckert.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you'll see him. He's coming from the 3-point stance here. He's going to just break out. He's just going to do an out route after about 10 yards. And like I said before, super strong with his hands. He bench presses this defensive back off of him. This is what I'm saying. He creates separation. If you want a guy who's going to create separation with his athleticism and strength, just watch this clip. It's very simple. He doesn't get him a lot of separation at first, right? He gets jammed. He gets hit right at the break of his route. He's trying to get leverage. He swims him. But watch this. I mean, you're just, bam, he's gone. Very quick for a guy of his speed. Very quick for a guy of his speed. Once he gets his hands on him, bam, gone. He just, psh. And look, it's 5 yards.
That's a great route, and you're also seeing, because this is, one-on-one drill, so it's very technical. They want to see what the technique looks like. And as you see, when he makes the cut outside, or I guess rather this is technically like an in route, but he's making the cut and he does come back towards the football. He's not drifting upfield. He's drifting back towards the line of scrimmage, which is good. He's really kind of on a straight line here. You'll watch, see, he's made the turn. Now let it go through. He's very much on a straight line. If anything, coming back to the ball, not drifting upfield, makes it an easier passing window for the quarterback to throw to. And it's just a really, really great route here. This is a great route. This is excellent. This is well done.
Yeah.
The way he gets to the top of the route and then breaks it off. The stem is good enough. He gets a little bit jammed, but it doesn't jam him up too much. He's able to break it off and get open on his cut, which is really good.
I really like, so he gets out, he's running right at the defender, right? But I like this right here. Watch his left foot. So he's trying to fake him out. He's trying to get leverage over the defensive back. He plants that left foot to win inside, right? So he's already won, right? At this point right here, he's won the rep. Right here, he won the rep because he gets that defender to bait to the left, and then he gets the leverage over top, and that gives him the ability to create that separation outside. That's high-level route running from a tight end. He gets the leverage and then wins with his athleticism and speed. And he's so strong. I mean, this defensive back tries to get his hands on him. It just doesn't even work. I mean, he's gone. I mean, look how off balance this defensive back is here. Look at the plant step. Just look at the plant step when he actually breaks to the out here. Bam, right there. This defensive back is totally vertical, and then he goes flying past him. He's trying to hold on. He's trying to hold on for dear life. This is like bobsledding. He's trying to hold on, and bam, he's gone. I mean, this is awesome stuff here. There's no way that defensive back is catching him once he catches that ball. I mean, that's really nice stuff there. It's great route running from a tight end. He has great hands. And here, I think this might be the last clip that we have, but this is a deep. So they put him in motion. I think he's actually already in the slot on the left side. You can't really see him yet. But you'll see a deep post route over the middle that he catches with one hand. It's hard to see. He's a little fuzzy. But he runs a deep post here, and he catches right here with one hand. You can see it. You can see it another film. This is the only game film clip that I could find of it. But
yeah, this is a super great route, and I love how he stacks on top of the defender.
Mm-hmm.
He gets over the top of him, doesn't let the defender get in front of him, and that's why. I mean, this is a perfect throw as well. I believe this is Justin. Yeah, it's Justin Fields.
Yeah,
this is a dime, absolute dot down the middle of the field. But the way he's stacking on top of the defender is what really gives him that little crease. Gives Justin Fields a window of opportunity here to put it over the defender because of the way that Jeremy Ruckert is stacking him, basically boxing him out like it's basketball, and creating a window of opportunity for Justin Fields to thread this ball into. And of course, the ball tracking skills here, the body control to one-hand this, just phenomenal, really impressive play here. And again, out of the 11 personnel, one tight end and one running back. And they even split this tight end out into the slot on the 11 personnel, which is something that you're going to see a lot from Brian Daboll. I just can't get over how perfect of a scheme fit Jeremy Ruckert truly is for Brian Daboll's offensive scheme. This is perfect. This is exactly what Dawson Knox does over in Buffalo, or at least he was doing with Brian Daboll in town. And this is exactly what I expect the Giants tight ends to do with Brian Daboll, now the head coach here, implementing his offensive schemes. A play like this, just basically a deep post. Look, fakes the inside, then outside, then just stacks over the middle of the field. Really great play here. And again, the one-handed catch, just cherry on top of all this, just to finish it off. Just phenomenal rep here.
Yeah. I mean, look, how many tight ends do you see running deep post routes in the NFL? You know what I mean? Like Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, every now and then Evan Ingram. Like you don't see tight ends athletic enough to stack I think he's actually on a linebacker here, which is a great matchup for him, but you don't want to put a corner on him because if you throw that ball high enough, he's going to high point it. He's going to use his leverage and body to just out muscle you. And you don't see this very often. You don't see this from tight ends. And with this type of route running, I mean, he stacks them, he gets over the top, one-handed catch the cherry on top. I mean, that's the type of player, like I'm a huge fan of Jeremy Ruckert right now. So this is the end of the film here. So we'll transition back to the double screen. But guys, Jeremy Ruckert, this is probably my favorite tight end in the class. There's a couple of other guys, Weidermeyer, Jake Ferguson. I'm pretty sure there's a couple other ones that people are really high on, but Jeremy Ruckert's my favorite tight end for the Giants specifically. He's a tremendous pass catcher. He goes full force, high motor guy in run blocking. You can trust him coming across the line of scrimmage. He's smart. He's uber athletic. He's strong as hell. He's got everything you want, and it's in a modern day tight end, right? Everything you want. And it sends us back to the pass catching days of Jeremy Shockey and those guys. And I think that Andy Bischoff, our tight ends coach, having worked with Mark Andrews and developed him into what he is today, it's a match made in heaven. Like I see the connection there. I really think that it would work tremendously well for the Giants. So that's kind of my take on Jeremy Ruckert. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, taking a look at the film. Anthony, you have any last words about Jeremy Ruckert?
Again, I just see such a perfect scheme fit for the Giants. This is probably, like you mentioned, probably my favorite tight end for the Giants specifically in this year's draft because he's great in the 11 personnel because he's got that run blocking ability, but he's also a really good receiver, can make plays in the red zone. This is what the Giants need, is a tight end like this. I know we always talked about how Evan Ingram didn't fit Jason Garrett's scheme. Well, Jason Garrett's scheme was calling upon 2 tight ends, and they were heavy blockers, and they were over the middle kind of guys. And maybe Jeremy Ruckert would have even fit better in that scheme. But for this scheme specifically, Brian Daboll's scheme, having the 11 personnel, having the tight end that will block on occasion up to 30 times in a single game, he needs to be a good blocker. He needs to be a willing blocker and a good run blocker. Jeremy Ruckert is that. But they also need the tight end to make those scrappy catches in traffic, right? Those plays in the red zone. Jeremy Ruckert also can get that job done. So in terms of fitting into Brian Daboll's 11 personnel heavy offensive scheme, Jeremy Ruckert, I think, would be perfect for that scheme. And if he's there on the board of good value for the Giants in the second or third round in this year's draft, I would love to see the Giants pull the trigger and find their new tight end out of Ohio State.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he'll be there late second round, early third rounds, where I kind of have him projected. The Giants have an early third round pick. Worst case scenario, we're trading back. Maybe we get another second out of it, another third round out of it. You package it like a sixth and a third together, and you move up a couple spots to get your guy. Jeremy Ruckert, like we keep saying, I think it's a match made in heaven for the Giants. He can do it all, and he's super athletic. Tons of potential left to untap there. But guys, hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe below as always, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
TVSO.